This is my definition of project management. If you're familiar with chemical equations, this above definition will make sense. When efforts and expenses come together, they give birth to a project. And this additive of expectations, if managed skillfully, can act as a catalyst or change the fate of a project by acting as a retardant. You know what's volatile about expectations? They change. This change through the course of the project must be navigated purposefully to maintain a harmony between real productivity and aspirations because change in expectations is inevitable. Remember, in the first episode, I said aim of a project manager should be to plan a project in a way that nothing acts like a pushback but becomes motivation to push the project forward to success. So the project manager should see expectations as a catalyst, or at least ensure it doesn't become a retardant. Managing expectations in a smart and empathetic way becomes pivotal for delivering successful outcomes. It becomes an integral part of achieving project success and maintaining a reputation of excellence in the field of project management. So today I have the perfect guest to speak about this topic with you all. It is a great pleasure that I introduce David Milo, a distinguished senior program manager with CBRE at Google's New York City office for its global portfolio management. With an impressive portfolio overseeing global data, equity, and innovation, David is a seasoned professional renowned for his exceptional leadership. His track record includes the creation of crucial key performance indicators for a substantial 100 million plus project management contract, managing intricate projects for major institutions such as Santander Bank and iconic landmarks like Madison Square Park, and spearheading the global COVID shutdown and remobilization process at Google. David's wealth of experience positions him uniquely to shed light on the intricacies of expectation management for stakeholders. Please join me in welcoming David. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I believe that the toughest challenge with stakeholders is the changing expectations. Can you share your experience with any mega or high-stake project or client in managing their changing expectations through the life cycle of the project?
Absolutely. There are a couple of key aspects to that question, and let's start with a project lifecycle. So when you first kick off a project, if you're doing it properly, and hopefully you'll have a project charter, which is the baseline of all of your goals and expectations out of that project over the course of time, right? So if you have that in place, you're already going down the right direction. But for the expectations managed over time, if you don't have that baseline, what are you going to do about it, right? So it could be an individual's expectations over a project could change day to day, week to week, year over year, depending on what is the overall strategy, either of a team, a region, a company, a global economic pattern, right? So one of the major aspects is, do you have it written down? If you have it written down, are you reviewing regularly? If you're not reviewing regularly, are you keeping track of it in other means? Right. So it may not be in a project charter, like I mentioned before, but maybe it is you're tracking towards the expectations of cost, or you're tracking towards the expectations of, as you mentioned in the introduction, quality of delivery. Right. Cost may not be an option. Many of my clients defer cost as a secondary item, and they want to say, we want to deliver the most innovative product that the world has ever seen. Right. So that is one of their expectations. And you break out all the top categories and say, all right, well, if innovation is what we're going for, and we want to be a world leader in this, and nothing else is an option, right? Here are all the different elements of what it's going to take to get there, right? Some of it is going to include time, labor, cost, materials, all different elements of a project's life cycle that are variable, right? And if one of any of those factors change, how are you going to relay that information back to your stakeholder, right? And the worst possible thing that you can do is not relay it quick enough, right? So are you communicating clearly? Are you communicating concisely? Are you communicating regularly? And obviously the theme here is just communication, but is there a story that you're trying to paint, right? And managing somebody's expectations is not about telling them that they're wrong or telling them that they're right. It is telling them the implications of all the actions and decisions that are being made, right? Whether they like it or not. If you choose to spend less money, you may get a lower quality product that serves the same purpose, that has a lower life expectancy or a higher maintenance anticipated cost down the road, right? If it is, we promised you a certain date and we can't hit the date, here are the implications of that. And it's to just really never just show up empty-handed. So if you can If you come with clear, concise communication and have a story that articulates the need for this individual, then their expectations are more likely to be managed successfully than not. That's kind of how I see it, or how I try and manage my stakeholders' expectations.
Thank you for sharing that. This experience does highlight the critical role of adaptive project management and continuous communication, as you highlighted throughout, in achieving the delicate balance between ambitious goals and realistic productivity. So recently, I came across this conference text by Professor Ko and Steve Rowlinson, which coined a new perspective called social capital, which creates a solid remark on accommodating societal impacts and processes involved in construction and mega projects as an inherent investment in the project's history. How do you interpret the role of social capital in project success? Furthermore, how would you juxtapose its importance against the traditional notion of financial investment as the most significant capital in the construction industry?
It's a great question, and it is hard to answer in today's standards. So when I think of social investment or social capital, you think back to some of the world are all focused on the United States mega projects, and they're often incredibly controversial. So Lincoln Center in New York City, right? Lincoln Center destroyed neighborhoods. The Hoover Dam flooded millions of acres of land in order to create a reservoir that affected the native individuals of that region. Yet the long-term impacts of two of those mega projects, one is arguably the most important water source for Western United States and generation of power within that region. And Lincoln Center could be classified as the best well-known musical entertainment space in the globe. Now, the cost of a project like that is just a number on the page when you're building a large-scale infrastructure project, right? Especially like the Hoover Dam. But what is something more relatable cost? So Google's project on Pier 57, which is Pier 57 is a historical pier built on 3 caissons floating in the Hudson River. It used to be an MTA bus parking garage, and they leased it, and they spent an astronomical amount of capital in a space that is an office building at its core purpose. However, it is potentially the only office building in the world that is floating on a pier in the middle of the Hudson River, that is operated and maintained by one of the largest technological companies in the world, right? And there are event spaces in it. There are green roof aspects of it. There are social education spaces in it for the environment that they had to put in as part of them building in that specific space. The impacts for the social gains in that case may outweigh, or in those 3 examples, may outweigh the actual cost of the project. But from an investor's point of view, what's the ROI on those spaces? ROI is typically calculated at one point in time, right? So Google may have 0 or negative ROI on Pier 57 just because of the operational cost of it and all those aspects of it. But the ROI on the Hoover Dam or Lincoln Center over the course of their lifetime is they're invaluable, right? You can't just get rid of them. So, I don't know if there is a fundamental shift for social economic value in terms of projects versus the financial impact of them. But I know that a lot of firms are taking it more into account, which is, how is this going to affect the local area? How is this going to affect the neighborhood nearby? How are we going to affect the individuals working in this area? Or it could be commute. It could be the economics of a street. It could be parking. Little things that all add up that provide great social impact.
Thank you.
But my pleasure. It's an interesting topic to go down when you think large scale to small scale, and it's hard to determine.
I think it's fascinating to emphasize the integral role of success beyond financial considerations by providing a nuanced understanding that goes beyond conventional notion. The balance has to be established by the stakeholders, the ones that are involved in the beginning and the ones that would be using it. Say for the Lincoln Center, it's public and versus the users who would be using. There are great expectations by performing artists across the country. The balance, if it is a little skewed, how do you balance it, should also be integrated in the process of managing this project. So thanks for giving those examples. Quickly, I wanted to ask you on that note, on a scale of 1 to 10, how urgent would you say is the need to identify quality as the currency in project planning?
Quality as currency in project planning and its urgency. Now, it depends on the industry that you're looking at. So let's compare two different industries. Maybe the financial sector, hospitality groups and hotels, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I walked into a hotel and it looked like JP Morgan's office, which however nice JP Morgan's new tower is, which is 270 Park Avenue, I probably wouldn't be happy with my accommodations, right? Now, there is visible quality and then there's tangible quality. So a space may look beautiful, but it may only last 2 years. Right. And then there is, all right, well, I may be using very subtle elements. I may be using a subtle stone, right? But it's marble or it's granite and it's going to last as long as it's there for, right? So if you look at old or ancient construction, and it's just to the materials that are available at the time, there are structures that have been around for thousands of years. Yet we are designing buildings and homes and infrastructure and roadways that are supposed to degrade in 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, right? And it puts a strain on the future quality of work, right? Because if I'm building something that's only going to last 20 years or 30 years and it's a couple $1 billion for whatever work that I'm doing, I may not recoup that money in time for when I have to rebuild. Right. So I think that there is, in some instances, a true lack of understanding of saying, all right, well, it's not my problem. In 20 years from now, in 50 years from now, I'm not going to have to deal with this. But from a greater standpoint, a greater humanity standpoint, we should get back to the ways where we're building products and buildings and infrastructure for things to last out of quality materials, or reuse the materials that we have in place in a more sustainable way.
Yep, absolutely.
So we'll see where industries pivot to, right? And if it's an area of focus for the quality of experience or the quality of an item or a space, what was the number that you're asking for?
1 to
on a
10.
Scale of 1 to 10, right?
Yep.
I would say industry specific. Finance may say its urgency is a 1, and hospitality may say it's an 8. So if you average it out, where even from my clients, 7. But Google, Santander, Macquarie, clients that I have worked with over the years, have large backings of capital to be able to do this, right? The small 100-person company may not have the capital investment to be able to provide super high quality spaces or developments.
You're saying quality does come at a cost of its own.
It definitely comes at a cost of its own. But you can have quality that is not inflated by a brand. The simple example is, a leather bag by Louis Vuitton that's using the same leather as an individual who's making it by hand.
I was exactly thinking of the same example. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thank you so much. I think your rating does provide a valuable insight into a pressing need for some and not for some as of now. So in closing, your valuable insights have not only illuminated the intricate dynamics of stakeholder management, the evolving landscape of project expectations, but also the concept of quality as a currency. Thank you so much. And we would love to hear more from you again.
My pleasure. I'm happy to speak with you anytime. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm glad I was able to participate in it.